Hello, Billy Rowe. Welcome to the first ever episode of 20 Questions. How are you, man?
I'm good. How you doing?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. Before we get started, I just wanted to quickly talk about your guitar business.
Yeah, well, it's a custom guitar company, Rock and Roll Relics. It kind of just was like kind of one of those happy accidents. I've always been into tinkering with guitars, repainting old vintage ones I never should have painted, but it led me to where I am now. And I got it's a custom guitar company. We got we got four models, and it's all it could be custom ordered by direct, or we also sell to a lot of stores. So we're known for the aging, to make them look old and beat up. And that's the basic of it. The best way to really check it all out is rockandrollrelics.com to see what we do.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to quickly ask that because I know a few people have asked about that and wanted to know more. So just thought I'd ask you. All right, so we'll get into the questions. I think, yeah, most of these are by the fans. Some of them are from me. So I'll just get straight into it. The first one is about San Francisco to LA. So when you landed in LA in 86, what was the first rehearsal or hangout that made you think Jetboy just leveled up, and why?
Let's see. When we first moved to LA, so when we first moved to LA, we knew we were going to sign with Elektra Records, so we kind of planned it all out. I believe it was like November of '86, and we were put up in a motel on Melrose and Vine, and 3 blocks away, or two blocks away, was one of the SIR rehearsal facilities, and so that became pretty much our musical clubhouse for rehearsing and writing and all that. And we were there for I guess like 2 years, maybe longer, something like that. Those are the days of breaking down your gear, putting it into a locker, and then setting up and doing the same thing over and over, day by day, or whatever it was.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was, yeah, that's just how it was. A lot of those places were not lockouts, so we'd have to break our stuff down. But we were so used to it at that point, and we were so excited just to be in LA. And that's all we did is we rehearsed and we went home, and then we went out at night and hung out at clubs. Nobody was working. So that was the job. So it was like, it was hard to complain about.
How did you and Fernie decide what didn't belong in a Jetboy song, or did?
Well, when we met, Fern and I met at a club at the Old Waldorf in San Francisco, and we just started hanging out. And I was doing a band with another friend of mine, Brian, and we really weren't playing out or anything. We were just, you know, writing originals and just having fun, trying to, gearing up towards that. And when Fern and I met, we just, there was a chemistry with us. And we were really deep into the same kind of the stuff we grew up on, from Aerosmith to AC/DC. But we really were into, when we discovered this band Hanoi Rocks, and you had bands like Lords of the New Church and Kicks and this band Japan. We just we just like decided, hey, we should form a band and kind of gear it towards all this kind of, that those bands at the time were new and up and coming, and underground. And we're just became fanatics of that. And you could see that kind of scene was starting to bubble when we were going down to LA and just overall even in San Francisco. And that's just basically what we did, and we started writing our own stuff. It's not like we didn't sound exactly like those bands. I think a lot of us were all influenced by a lot of those bands' music, but it was more in a lot of ways the image. And then we kind of just created our own style in many ways, because you listen to the old Jetboy, it's very more punkish, up tempo type stuff. So, which I guess would fall into the total Hanoi Rocks and bands like Girl and Kicks, like the early Kicks stuff is kind of more punkish as well.
Speaking of Hanoi Rocks, we talked about a bit about Sammy on the interview, but someone asked, what was that first rehearsal like with him?
Well, the first rehearsal with Sam was nothing but awesome. I mean, he's a phenomenal bass player. and nothing against Todd, our first bass player, rest in peace. Sam was just seasoned, we were still green and new and hadn't toured the world. And here comes this guy from a band that we were influenced by and looked up to, and who had, basically done touring for the last 4 or 5 years of his life and putting out records and recording. So we all felt that he just injected a whole new level of the band. I mean, his bass playing was just amazing, and it leveled us up to the next level. Really, as a band, it was amazing. We were at that SRI rehearsal at that same place, and we just knew right from the get go that, like, wow, this is going to be a great thing for the band.
Yeah, and you certainly seemed like you fit in after everything you were saying on the
Yeah,
interview. Yeah.
yeah, he clicked. Yeah, we all clicked. I mean, it clicked right away. I mean, to this day, when we see each other, we still joke and laugh about the same stuff we used to do back in those days. It was a time and a place back then in LA. We didn't realize at the time, but it was a magical moment. Everybody was, from the whole scene to all the different bands to the fans to how everything. We were all on the same page of just this massive passion for that style of music.
When you were in LA, what besides the music and playing, what else did you do? Did you have like a job or some way to get money?
No, well, luckily enough, we when we got signed, our management budgeted us to get so much money a week. Some of us did odd jobs, but for the most part, we just kind of, we just wrote songs and rehearsed and went out at night and just hung out, basically. Just like, I mean, that was really the life. I mean, it's really no other way to say. A lot of us could have gone and like gotten jobs, but we were just focused on just doing everything we can to put into the band. So the band was nonstop for us, day and night.
Well, what's one riff or melody you wrote early on in your Jetboy days that changed Jetboy songs and how people hear them?
Which one is it that I wrote or overall?
Overall, and then you wrote. Let's do both.
Fern came up with the riff, "Feel the Shake," and I really think that guided the band into that kind of really old school AC/DC direction from where we were with a more kind of up tempo, punky, poppy. It was always kind of poppy, our stuff, but more the kind of faster stuff. And I think after that, we kind of really started to groove into kind of more that mid tempo, a little bit heavier of a sound than the early stuff. And riffs for me, it's like from that era would be Snakebite. I think that's a big riff. It was in the set. It was one of those kind of, it was just one of those songs that we played a lot in the live set back in the day, and sometimes we still do it.
Well, speaking of Feel the Shake before, when you first heard it on the radio, what was that feeling like for yourself?
It was amazing. Just it's that whole thing where you just pinch yourself, seeing if this is real. You grew up listening to the radio and the classic TV shows as a kid, Don Kirshner's and the Midnight Special, and yeah, here we are. You're just dropping a needle on a record player to the vinyl for the first time was incredible. That was just as much of a high as hearing us on the radio.
Do you feel the song itself, Feel the Shake, is one of your best? Or do you think another song is just a bit underrated, but do you think it's better than Feel the Shake?
For like all of the catalog or like
Yeah,
just that in general, that record?
just that record or the catalog in general, because I've seen that a lot of people say that Feel the Shake is one of your best, but I personally believe that I really like Make Some Noise, but everyone has a different, thoughts.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I do. When I do hear "Feel the Shake" out, or it's you see people post stuff with the song. It's like that song is definitely got its own thing. I don't know what it is, but it's hooky. It's got a heavy vibe, a poppy vibe, a rock vibe. And I do think it's one of our strong ones. It could be also because it was one of the bigger ones, the first single from the first record, so the title track. But There's other ones on that record I think are just as great. Fire My Heart, Make Some Noise,
Mm.
you know. I mean, that's another one that the intro riff was mine. I came up with that, and the way that song came about was the old way of writing. Is like I would come up with something, or Fern would come up with something, and then I would bounce off his idea. He would bounce off mine, and Mick would be just boom. He'd just start writing lyrics.
And that's how it went from there.
That's how a lot of the early stuff was. Up just in a room, and Fern had a riff, and then I'm like, oh, okay, what about this? Wrong, just put drums to it, and then Mick would just be, he would be with a notepad, and he goes, I got something, and he would just zone out in a whole nother, just he would be like invisible, and you'd just see him just writing lyrics on his in his notepad, and like sometimes within minutes the song's done.
Oh wow.
Some of it just came really fast. Some took hours and days to finish. But definitely, I remember Make Some Noise. That's something that came really fast for all of us.
Well, when you were writing songs, and let's say you finished them in days or minutes, did you guys play them and then realized, okay, we need to change some stuff here? Did that happen a lot?
No, that didn't happen too much. Actually, that didn't happen until we started recording the second record. I would say maybe a little bit off the first record. Feel the Shake. I remember Fire My Heart. If you hear the demos, it's a little bit different musically. Some of the guitars were just Tom Allen came in and he goes, why don't you play it like this? And then Fern play it like this. And it kind of switched up. I think that's the only one I really remember kind of being really kind of tweaked a little bit after we wrote it and had been playing it out live. But like Damnation, that record for sure. There's a lot of those songs on that record where they were a demo and early writing stages. By the time they got to the album, and Dwayne Barron and John Purdell were doing pre-production with them and producing, there's a lot of things that kind of got moved around a little bit, and some riffs that got more solidified and sharpened up. But the early stuff was never like that. We would like write the riffs and just kind of put the structures together as we thought it should be, first bridge, chorus, solo, an outro or whatever. And it would just kind of, that was it. It was done.
Well, after those albums went out, did you expect, what was your expectations for the album when that first came out?
I think we all had big expectations in many ways. And then not a lot at the same time. A lot of it was because we saw other bands of our friends and peers, start to sell records and bigger tours, and so we were like, okay, we're gonna get that too. So it was kind of at that point, 1987, when that whole movement from Jetboy Festivals got LA Guns, Guns N' Roses, Poison, and then so on. But that core of those bands right there, we were really kind of the next wave of what became that whole 80s Sunset Strips music. You see it on MTV, and we're like, yeah, it's like we're gonna do this too.
Yeah, you see your own music video on MTV. Speaking of the music videos, what was that like being a part of that? Because everyone has their different story with the guys I've interviewed. But did you guys have an idea about how the music video will be like, or management, or did someone else?
With the Feel the Shake video?
Yeah, we'll go with that one.
Yeah, well, that one was done by this guy by the name of Jim Shea. He also did the album cover artwork, photo shoot, back photo, individual shots, and all that. He was a guy who started getting into video at the time. So he did our video, and the day before, he did the Kicks Cold Blood video. And then he did, this is perfect talking to you about it, but he did Kings of the Sun, which is Australian, that song Serpentine. He did their video.
Oh, wow.
He just had the idea of like, we just need to do a live setting. And so that video where we're playing that Feel the Shake video is the exact same stage, lighting, and everything as the Kicks Cold Blood video.
And what that was in 1980.
We did that in 1988. We discovered him because I was really into Kings of the Sun, and that Serpentine video. Bridget, our manager at the time, said this is a great video. I think we should find the guy that did this, or I don't know if it came together because he did the album art and he started to do videos, but that was definitely, or maybe it was because he did the album art and doing the video. He did this video for Kings of the Sun, and we liked it, and I was a fan of the band, but there's a total connection with all that.
And how long did it take to record? Was it just one take, or was there multiple?
Oh no, we were there all day. We probably were there. We probably ran that song 50 to 60 times to get all that footage.
Did that?
We just lip synced it over and over and over and over and over again.
How did that feel? Just over and over again.
It was a blast at first, but then you start getting burnt out, going, all right, enough already. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, surely you have enough takes.
It was fun. We had a blast. It was great.
Yeah.
Again, we were early 20s, so we were in the time of our lives, And if you look closely in the video, if anybody's a Foo Fighter fan, Chris Shiflett's in the audience there.
Oh, wow.
The Feel the Shake video. Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big Foo Fighters fan, but I'm sure plenty of people will be listening to this, so they're probably going to go have a look.
He was a big Jetboy fan in his younger years when he was a kid, so he used to come see us a lot, and so that's some good trivia.
When you walked on stage night after night, was there ever a time where you're like, oh, I just want to skip this show, or did you just always love to play? But if you were like down, what motivated you to,
Yeah, well, again, early years, it was like we always loved stepping on stage. Doing the show was, exciting. Once you start touring, I don't think we really ever felt it too much in the Jetboy days, because we toured a bit, but we didn't tour like a lot of the other bands that I mentioned before that we came up with. They did a lot more touring back in the day, but I think when you're younger, that kind of stuff doesn't faze you as much. But when you get older and all that, sometimes it's just like anything. Some days you're just not feeling it. You're just tired or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, but for the most part, once you get up there, that shakes off you real quickly.
Yeah, it's a bit of adrenaline comes in, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there any moments live that went wrong, and how did you improvise it?
There's always a moment live that something can go a little wrong. But honestly, I really can't remember too many in the Jetboy days, to be honest. Everybody was pretty on the ball, and if something did kind of fall off course, we were able to recover quickly.
If you, what's an early critique you faced from maybe a promoter, journalist, or just a person after a show? What did they say, and did it stick with you, and how did you move on?
Oh, in a negative way?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to remember reviews and stuff like that, I think back then there was a good portion of us, like the bands I mentioned, that we came up with. We were very, we wanted to just be really listed as a rock and roll band. We didn't want it. We weren't a big fan of 80s hair metal or Sunset Strip, whatever. It was always, we're just a rock and roll band.
Yeah.
And some people would put that in there because there's a selling point to that at the time. That's what was big, but we just wanted to kind of be a straightforward rock and roll band because that's what we were.
Is there any early sacrifices in Jetboy that you had to make to, go into a better direction, or?
I think so. I think some of the sacrifices weren't even sacrifices back then. They were just, we were younger and we were learning as we were moving along on how things work, and music styles change quickly. And once we were in the game with major labels, it's business. People want to make money, who are putting the records out and managing you and all that stuff. So, when it came to the second record, we were put in with songwriters, which we were a little hesitant at first because we're like, well, you signed us off the songs we wrote ourselves, but it's just it wasn't a bad thing. We had a lot of fun doing it. And I personally learned a lot from working with other people who were just basically songwriters. And of course today that's like what the big industry runs on is songwriters. So I guess it did in the old days too, but so that was the only that was a little bit that was it wasn't a negative thing. It's just again we were just learning as we were moving along. We were also young. We're just fans who got into a band or formed a band because we just love the music so much. So I'm still a fan of everything I grew up on. So the music and seeing them live, from AC/DC to Aerosmith, whether there's all original guys left or just a few, and I get just as excited as I did as a kid because I'm a fan. So the whole rock star thing is like we're just fans who are in a band and doing what we love doing.
Yeah, well, speaking of influences, when did you get into those sort of bands, and how did you just see them on the TV, or did a family member show you or a friend?
Back in the days, it really would be like friends or older brothers of friends, and then magazines and TV commercials back in the day. But for me, a lot of it was, I had a good friend of mine, Alex, who's still one of my closest friends to this day. He turned me on to Kiss. He turned me on to a lot of rock bands back then. And my friend, another good friend of mine, I'm still great friends with, Gus, his sister, was a couple of years older, and she was a music nut. She always saw the Ramones album in her record collection for the first time, and Tom Petty's first record. So it was really kind of very rootsy back in the day. And you go to the you go to the market. There's the magazine with rock bands on the cover, and you look through it, and if they looked like I'd be into them, I'd want to go check that band out, especially in the record stores.
That's what I did when I first got into music. I just thought if they look cool enough, I'll have a listen. But now I got older and used technology, so I can see all that. But when I was a bit younger, just who looked cool. I got first into Guns N' Roses and then Poison in Europe, and then it exploded from there.
Yeah, that's how it was for me. Mainly the record stores. By the time I was able to go in, take the bus and go to the record store on my own, I would spend hours in there just going through alphabetically every section, just learning about all these bands. And if it caught my eye and I just kept turning it back and forth, it's like I would definitely want to get that and see if I'm gonna like the music.
If you could remix or remaster one Jetboy song from the 80s with today's technology and, all the new fancy stuff, what song would it be?
Well, I've always wanted to kind of go in and remix the Feel the Shake album in many ways, just but if it was just a song, it would probably be a song off that record. I don't know which one it would be though. That's a tough one. I don't know. Maybe it's hard to say. That's a tough one. And even the second record, I really like the mix of that record.
Has there been talks with you and Mickey and some of the guys about remastering that album?
No, but I think we've really felt that Feel the Shake it's a great record, but it's kind of as time's gone on, it kind of feels like it's stuck in a time in a way. It could sometimes some of it sound dated, and I just think it could be a little grittier. It came out a little cleaner than I personally wanted to hear the first record, but there's some people that love it because of that. So,
Well, in your view, what's the most interpreted lyric you ever sang in Jetboy, and what was the real meaning behind it?
Well, when it comes to the lyrics, that's all Mickey. He wrote every word, every title, the whole thing. So, so what words are going to interpret it? I could tell you where I would think, but that was his thing, and honestly, I was back in those days. I wasn't really I was so focused on guitar riffs and catchy melodies and the lyrics and all that. I was never a big lyric person, even growing up on the stuff I grew up on, but I'm kind of more into it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what's
So
one guitar riff you would change then?
what?
One guitar riff you would change, or melody, chorus?
But one that I would change. I don't know if I would really change any of it. I would probably just, if anything, like I say, I would like just kind of make it a little grittier, just a little harder sounding. Some of those stuff off the first record. They have it less clean. I have it a little dirtier, a little more AC/DC.
Gritty, like, almost.
Yeah, a little more gritty, like say Power Edge versus Highway to Hell. Like it's kind of in between those two.
When you transitioned into Buckcherry, how hard was it to learn their songs, or was it quick for you?
It was, yeah. Well, for me, it was. I was always a fan of the band, so I knew just not on guitar, but I knew in my head a good handful of their albums and the songs, which really helps to kind of learn songs because you kind of the muscle memory moves quicker, for that stuff. But this band is Buckcherry is just one of those. It's a band that just fits what I do so well. I fit right in with what they do. It's just real straightforward, simple rock and roll riffs, that are hooky and riffy. And so a lot of it came, it just kind of fit right in. It was really actually doing more shows and getting a feel for playing with everybody for me is to really kind of find my footing, but it didn't take very long because it just, it felt right. They're definitely a hardworking band. So I've been in the band since it's been 3 albums so far. So they're constantly, writing, putting the material out, and playing live.
So as a whole, what's one thing that for you personally that you regret not doing or changing or something like that?
Oh man, I don't. That's a tough. I don't know. It's hard to say. That's probably. I don't really regret anything, really. I think like all the stuff that I went through personally for myself got me to where I'm at now, and where I'm at now is really the best place I've ever been in my life. So I really don't have any regrets. Um, so musically with stuff like with the records and things like that, there's some things I would have approached differently, but I didn't have as much experience back then. So when doing these records, there's a couple things that I kind of wish the first Fluid demos that we did when we got signed, I kind of wish we just put that out as like an EP before we put out Feel the Shake.
Is there any reason you didn't?
Well, it was because we got signed and then we had producers and managers and they got us in writing songs. So by the time we did Feel the Shake, there's only maybe Bad Disease, Fire My Heart, Hard Climb somewhat, and I guess maybe not even Hometown Blues. Most of those songs were written within a year after we got signed. So there was like maybe 8 songs or more that we were playing up until the point that got us signed that never made the record. And I think some of those songs, I think if we kind of went in and recorded those songs kind of quickly, kind of did what GNR did, maybe put out a live EP or something to launch into the first release of our first major release album. And I wish we had done something like that.
I'd say a lot of bands have done that, like you said, GNR and some other guys, but
Yeah.
So is that something that you feel personally that you could change, or is it do some of the band as well?
I wish we did do something like that. I remember when the first record came out that a few, so I think we were just a local band by then. We didn't go national. We signed a record deal and did a record, and then we started touring the world. So it was all the early fans that really got us to where we went, getting a deal and all that. And a lot of people would say, I don't know if it's a lot of people, but some people would say it's like, wow, I bought the first record and I only knew like 3 songs on there. Whereas like GNR and Faster Pussycat, most of those songs were all songs they were playing live, and that the fans of that time, the early, you know, local LA fans or whatever you want to call it, they knew the songs. But when ours came out, it was a lot of new stuff. So people were kind of like, oh, wow, most of the stuff I've never heard before because we barely played it out live.
Yeah, so they had to like kind of try and pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
Did that?
And that was just really locally, you know, because when you get out to like the outside of the world, the bigger picture, those people didn't know the band. It was, you know, we were new to them because they weren't local. They weren't going to the Troubadour and the Roxy and the Whiskey to see us in the early years, you know.
Well, Billy, thank you so much, man. It's been an honor to have you here.
Yeah, I hope you got some stuff there.
Thank you for coming on. Is there anything you want to say before I end the video?
I'll come on anytime. If there's people out there, the people who listen to your show, your fans, you know, have more questions, you know, I'm always open to talking about it. So it's fun.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful people are into it still to this day, and our music is, you know, gone through has reached new generations now.
For you, is it still cool that young fans, you could say like myself, still dig your music? Do you still think it's sick? Did you ever think that would happen?
No, I know. I mean, it blows my mind. I see it out here on the road with Buckcherry. There's this kid that comes to see Buckcherry, and she's 14 now, and she discovered Buckcherry because she's a Jetboy fan, and she heard us on, I don't know, one of the movies we had a song in, and she's a Jetboy fanatic. And like I've become friends with her and her mom, and it blows my mind. I mean, I love it. That's how I was. I discovered bands that were long gone by the time I got into them, and you know, that's how you keep this music alive. You know,
Yeah, keep playing and
for
keep
me,
pushing.
that's actually my favorite thing is to meet the young generation who is into this music. Out of everything I do, that's my favorite thing to see out here on the road. I love it.
That would be awesome, honestly. I can see why. You see music still alive, you know, that young generation of people that come to your show, they're going to pass it on. It's just going to keep going and going.
Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, man, for coming on. Like I said, guys, go check out Billy's socials. I'll put them in the link description, and go check out mine. And whoever you want on next time, leave in the comments. Like I said, Billy, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, man. You bet.